What is up, guys? Dzeeff here, and happy January 28th, 2019, aka the day that the ban list goes into effect, and aka the day that Brilliant Fusion is limited. In today's video, I want to do sort of an ode to Brilliant Fusion, and what I mean by that is that I want to talk about all the different decks that I've taken to events and that I've built using Brilliant Fusion. It's probably the card that my channel is most known for. I mean, maybe nowadays people know me more for things like Chaos Max Dragon, but for a very long period of time, pretty much ever since Brilliant Fusion came out, I've played it in like hundreds of strategies, and that was kind of like the ongoing channel meme. Now, to be fair, I haven't played Brilliant Fusion in about a year now. I've been playing a lot of decks like Altergeist that don't really need a card like Brilliant Fusion. I picked up my Ultimate Rare copies, and I never really got to play those in an event, which is, I feel bad. I wish I would have played like Thunder Dragons or something at some event with those cards. I played a couple games with them with like Fluffles and stuff, but for the most part, my experience with Brilliant Fusion is mostly pre-Ash, which I'll talk about, and also pre-Ultimate Rare version. I just used these super rares for years, basically, until the Ultimate Rare came out. But anyway, let's talk about all the different decks that I've played Brilliant Fusion in and taken to events. So the first deck that I played Brilliant Fusion in, and actually the reason that I picked it up, was way back in 2015 when Brilliant Fusion first came out, and I actually, surprisingly to a lot of people, I picked it up because of Gem Knights. Gem Knights got a ton of support that summer, and I picked it up for like $1 each, which is crazy. It's one of the only cards that went up in price. Like, I mean, that's like more than 10 times the value of what it was. It ended up being like a $10, $15 card, even when it got reprinted a bunch, and it was one of the cards that went up in price, and it stayed up at price for years. So that $1, that was a good purchase, and I bought it for Gem Knights, and what I found was so cool about the card was, yeah, Seraphonite, and I think that there's a couple things that led me to playing it in a lot of other decks. The biggest reason was that in Gem Knights, I discovered that you could use Mathematician and Brilliant Fusion, and that was like a 2-card OTK. I'm pretty sure I even had like an old video about that being a 2-card OTK. You could do just like a million damage with it, and it was really cool. Brilliant Fusion in Gem Knights is just such a powerful card. You don't actually have like Garnets or anything. I don't even know if I played Garnet in those older Gem Knight builds. I probably did. No, I think I played Amber, actually, because back then it was cool because you could actually, with the Seraphonite, you could get the Amber effect. I know it's played in Thunder Dragons for a different reason because it's a Thunder monster, but in the Gem Knight deck that I was playing, it was just played because you could use the extra summon effect. But also, the cool thing that I found, this wasn't my idea, I think it was Bobby Kenny's idea, or Pasquale's idea, was that you could send Wing Karibo, yes, Wing Karibo, the card that hasn't seen a ton of competitive play, you could send that to the graveyard with Brilliant Fusion and then activate Philosopher's Stone to add Gem Knight Fusion to your hand. In hindsight, that combo isn't very good, but it was a cool way to just make the Gem Knight deck have more extenders. It's not something that actually saw any competitive play, but at least when we were like theorizing the Gem Knight deck when Brilliant Fusion first came out, that was one combo that I remember was pretty funny. Pretty cool use of actually like a random card like Philosopher's Stone that a lot of people just don't even know exists. After that, though, I played Brilliant Fusion in a variety of decks. I remember testing it out in like Battery Man and stuff, but the big reason that I love Brilliant Fusion, the first like real event that I took Brilliant Fusion to was in 2015. It was during a really bad time in my life. If you guys, probably none of you were around during that time, but it's just a very horrible time in my life. But I remember I went to a regional qualifier in Indianapolis. I took Madolches, and I played Brilliant Fusion, and that was my most, well, not, I guess it's my most recent top 8 at a regional. It's not my most recent top, but it is my most recent top 8 was at that Indianapolis regional with Madolches with Brilliant Fusion, and man, that was like crazy. You know, a lot of people at that point hadn't really been playing Brilliant Fusion and things. It wasn't really as popular. Nowadays, like, you know, people know what Brilliant Fusion does, but back then I would activate Brilliant Fusion and everyone had to like read the card. Oh my god, that card was so good on my Dolces. Like, it was good because you got the extra normal summons that come with Imagining. Obviously, it come with everything in your deck, but it was super cool too because I played some cards that you could use like Pudding Cess and bring that out, and then you could overlay the Pudding Cess with the Seraphonite for Choco a la mode, and then because you had Pudding Cess under it, it got its bonus effect, and man, that deck was crazy. That was like, there's been some times in the past, like the ARG like nationals that I topped this past summer, and like the regional that I just went to in Columbus that I should have probably topped that one. There's like events like that where like I just felt like I was just playing like perfectly like all day and just felt really in my zone, kind of, which I imagine like actual good players, like they're probably in that zone a lot when they go to tournaments. But for me personally, I can't always like find that place where I just feel like I'm playing like to the best of my ability and my deck choice is amazing. And that event was like it. That format was super crazy. There were so many viable strategies. It wasn't quite like the Magician Pendulums, because the Magician Structure deck hadn't came out. There was like early versions of the Pendulum deck, but not really. You had like Cosmos, you had Magic Specters, which were really hyped. And man, I just like killed everyone with Madolches, just like over and over and over again. And a big reason was Brilliant Fusion, and I think that was like the first time that I took Brilliant Fusion to an event, and I was like, holy crap, this card is insane. And that was just awesome. It was awesome getting that top 8. And now that I think of it, they said they were out of top 8 mats for that regional, and then they said to give us our addresses and they would ship them to us. They never did that. I don't have that regional top 8 mat. I don't know how. There's no way that I could possibly contact someone about that now, but I just remembered. I was like, what mat was the regional top 8? It's like, oh, I never was given it, so that kind of sucks. But overall, that was when I fell in love with Brilliant Fusion for the first time, was in Madolches, which I would play that deck over and over and over again through so many different formats. But that was like the big event that I went to with Brilliant Fusion, and that's when I started to realize, oh, you can play some decks besides Gem Knights, which was like a huge deal for me. And then I started putting it in pretty much every strategy after that point. And then the event after that, I took Chronomalies because I already had my invite, and Nebrdisk had just come out. I thought that was kind of cool. I played it with artifacts as well, and I wanted to play Brilliant Fusion that deck. You have a lot of like rank 5 plays. It's really cool for making like artifact Durandal and stuff like that. But I remember like at the Madolche regional, I was like, man, I'm drawing Garnet a lot, so I just wanted to cut it to 1 copy. But remember that this is like before a lot of people are messing around with Brilliant Fusion, so like this might sound silly in hindsight, but I thought, okay, if I'm cutting 1 Garnet, I should probably cut 1 Brilliant Fusion too. So I remember that event, I played 2 Brilliant Fusion, 1 Garnet, and I think in that deck profile, I like mentioned that it's like the worst idea I've ever had, and that's when I realized, okay, you play 3 Brilliant Fusion, 1 Garnet, because like you just want to open Brilliant Fusion, resolve it once, and you don't care about like the longevity. Even in like grindy decks like Chronomalies, it just doesn't matter. You just want to open the Brilliant Fusion, you don't want to open the Garnet. That's how you end up with like 3 copies and 1 copy. You know, a lot of times I get questions from people like, how do you know like the right ratio of stuff? And a lot of this stuff, other people just like figure it out. But for me personally, like because the Brilliant Fusion engine was so unexplored back in 2015, early 2016, I really just like, I had no idea. So I just played the 3 and 2 ratio, played the 2 and 1 ratio, and then I came to the conclusion after playing both of those ratios at events, oh, I should just play 3 and 1. That makes way more sense. But it's pretty funny just thinking back to it. I always look at that profile, I'm just like, man, I really thought that 2 Brilliant Fusion, 1 Garnet would be like the way to go, the least bricky way to go. But I wasn't quite aware of that. Oh, you need to just play 3 copies of Brilliant Fusion, 1 copy of Garnet. But ever since then, I pretty much always stuck with the 3 and 1 ratio. There were a couple times that I went outside of that, but for the most part, 3 and 1 was the way that I went and the way that most people went when Brilliant Fusion was being played. Later on in 2016, I would end up playing Monarchs, and I wasn't a huge fan of Domain Monarchs. I was a really big fan of Extra Deck Monarchs, which is a deck that plays all the Monarch cards. It still plays Domain, but it plays like an Extra Deck and makes rank 5s a lot, and rank 6s sometimes too. But I played that deck and I played Brilliant Fusion, and there was a really bad combo. It was cool and it did top some events, but there was a combo in Monarch specifically. One of the biggest issues of that deck is that oftentimes or sometimes you just wouldn't draw a Monarch card, and so you could find some ways to like sort of get around that. And one of the combos was if you open Brilliant Fusion and Return of the Monarchs, you could Brilliant Fusion to summon Seraphonite, sending Gem Knight Lazuli and Jax Knight to the graveyard. The Lazuli would trigger, add the Jax Knight back to your hand, and then you could activate Return of the Monarchs, and then you use your extra normal summon to summon the Jax Knight. And because you just tribute summoned the Jax Knight, you got to search a Monarch with the return, and then because Gem Knight or Jax Knight was a tribute summon monster, you could use it as the entire tribute for one like Ether or Erebus and stuff like that. So that was like the big combo. Like I said, it topped a couple of regionals, but it's like, it's not a good combo because you're playing like multiple Garnets. You're either playing like 1 Jax Knight, 1 Lazuli, but a lot of people played 2 Lazuli, 1 Jax Knight. So like you shouldn't really enter an event with a card like Brilliant Fusion where you have 3 Brilliant Fusion and 3 Garnets. You should probably try to just minimize the Garnets. Like at the very least, you should have like a 3 and 2 ratio, so you actually like don't. So you want to see like the good card more often than the bad cards. But I played that like in an event. It was pretty cool. I remember having an ultimate rare copy of Jax Knight just like in my binder that I got to use, and that was kind of that's just like one of the many examples of why I love Brilliant Fusion, because that combo like never would have saw play. Like Jax Knight never would have been a competitive card ever, but because Brilliant Fusion existed, because Monarchs existed at the same time, you now have this card that probably never would have saw play anytime competitively, because just a level 5 vanilla monster, and then it sees play randomly in like 1 format or 2 formats just because of this crazy combo with Brilliant Fusion. Even if it's not the optimal combo, it still saw some play. It still saw enough competitive play to say, hey, that's kind of cool that Jax Knight actually saw tournament topping success. After that, you know, I didn't really play a ton of Brilliant Fusion. I played a variety of decks. I just didn't really need the card. I mean, I still kept up with it like casually and stuff. I'll talk about those decks at the end. But the last event that I played Brilliant Fusion at, like with the card in the deck, an event that I entered was Fluffles, which I still stand by that Brilliant Fusion and Fluffles is like one of the best combos you can possibly do. If you open like Dog or Bear and Brilliant Fusion, you just like win. You like get a +4, +5, or +6 depending on like which cards you're playing. And that was just like nuts to me. But I remember playing playing that deck, the Fluffle deck, when Zoo had just come out. Well, Zoo hadn't just come out, but they had just discovered like the Norden combo, and the reason is that, and I totally unironically mean this, Fright for Sheep is like really good against Zoo. It can't be killed with Trident because it just brings itself back, and they can't whiptail it because it has an Armades effect. So the only way to like deal with Sheep is to summon like 2 Tridents, but they can only summon 1 Trident per turn. So like if you can like deal with the Trident every turn, like they can't deal with Sheep. There was like a game that I won. I literally just summoned Sheep instead of Forbidden Lance with no other cards, like no other like combo that I went off with, and that just like won me the game. It was so crazy. That's also the format, because that was like when Fusion Enforcers came out, so they had Kraken. That was the format where if Fluffles would have had like their actual like Fright for Patrick card, that would have been the format where I'm pretty sure they would have gotten regional tops, just because like even though like they weren't the best deck, they did have a good Zodiac matchup. They just needed to have Fright for Patrick, that consistency card. That was like such a big deal to them, and that's why like when I think of like Fright for Patrick and people say like, oh, like the deck never ended up being competitive, I always am a little bit salty because in the OCG when they had Zodiacs, Fluffles actually did see some rogue play because Sheep was so good against Zoo, and it's just like kind of funny to think about that. Like there's a world where Fright for Patrick got released in Fusion Enforcers like it should have, and then Fluffles actually ended up being like a solid rogue contender. Obviously that never happened. We got Fright for Patrick way too late, but it's still cool to think about, and I had a lot of fun at that regional. And thinking back to it, you know, honestly, if that's like my last memory of playing Brilliant Fusion in a tournament, I'm completely okay with that. That was so much fun. I got to play Fluffles as the deck that I'm like such a fan of. I've been playing for so many years, and I love Brilliant Fusion in that deck, and I had so much fun at that event. That's a good last memory for Brilliant Fusion. Even if it wasn't the ultimate rare copy, even if it was not like an event that I topped, that was still a good final memory for playing Brilliant Fusion at a tournament. And then there's just like a whole bunch of rogue decks that over the years, like I tested time and time again using Brilliant Fusion. I think of like Shinobird Spirits, who's Brilliant Fusion really well. I think of like Blue Eyes, which I was a huge fan of all the Brilliant Fusion combos in that deck. Zombies, Light Sworns, Battery Man, all these different decks, and so many more that like so many like one-of decks I just played on stream like one time with Brilliant Fusion. And that's why Brilliant Fusion was like such an iconic card for this channel, because I know a lot of people just thought it was like a deck building crutch for me, but really I just love the card so much. I love Seraphonite, I love Garnet, even though I don't want to draw it. It's still, I love that engine so much, and honestly, like that's why I'm not, when people saw that like Balanced Reaction fan, I know that Farfa posted that video yesterday, and he was like, wow, I'm surprised that like Dzeeff isn't like more mad or more sad about Brilliant Fusion being hit. And it's like, to me, the glory days of Brilliant Fusion was when it was first coming out. It was like the first 2 or 3 years. It was before Ash Blossom could negate Brilliant Fusion. It was before Link Summoning made Gemite Seraphonite a little bit worse. Obviously, at this point, Gemite Seraphonite ended up not being a liability. But just in general, to me, when I think of why I loved Brilliant Fusion, I think back to that Madolche like regional top 8. I think back to summoning Choco a la mode with Seraphonite and Pudding Cess, and just like murdering all my opponents with like these crazy combos with like Madolches of all decks. That's like the glory days of Brilliant Fusion to me. So those are already in the past. I mean, I've kind of accepted that I wasn't going to play Brilliant Fusion that much going forward anyway, unless I picked up Thunder Dragons, but that's not really like the decks that I've been playing. I'm playing Geist for like a year now, and it's like, that's why I wasn't so mad or so disappointed with like Brilliant Fusion being banned, or not, it's not banned, but it's limited, and you can still play like the Predaplants with it if you really want to, but that's not, I wasn't thinking of Brilliant Fusion in like the context of Thunder Dragons or in the context of Predaplants or getting ashed or stuff like that. I liked when I could play Brilliant Fusion, open the card, and just know that I won that game because my opponent had no interaction for it. Sometimes they had the Max C, but a lot of times with Madolches, you could just kill them through the Max C, which made that deck so much fun. So I am sad that Brilliant Fusion is limited. I don't think it'll come back to 2 or 3 for a very long time. Pretty much as long as Thunder Dragons are in the format, I don't think that Brilliant Fusion can come back. But it's such a cool card. Saw tons of play in rogue decks and meta decks, and it was just like an equalizer for everyone. Everyone liked Brilliant Fusion. It was such a cool card. But anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed this walk through memory lane of good old Brilliant Fusion, and I will patiently be awaiting when it comes back to 3 copies per deck. We'll play it in something. Hopefully that eventually happens. But I'll see you guys later. Thanks so much for watching today's video. Goodbye.